Welcome everyone to Cabrillo Unified School District Board meeting. Glad to have you all here. Thank you. The board just was in closed session from 6:03 to 7, and we took no action today. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Dylan Prosser is going to lead us. So Dylan, could everybody stand, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first may I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented this evening?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you, Dr. Reamer. Agenda is adopted as presented. Before we start the meeting, I'd just like to ask for a moment of silence. The district has lost two gentlemen over the last couple of weeks, John Corey and John Evans, who dedicated their passion, hard work, love of children to this district, and just tragedy losing both of them, and especially in such a short period of time. So if we could just, for 30 seconds, just put them in our thoughts and take a moment. Thank you very much. We'll move to number 8 on the agenda this evening, student, staff, and community recognition. And got a couple of teams here to recognize, very exciting. So Jane, if we may.
John Nazar, could you come up front, please? Yep.
First of all, we are here to recognize an amazing group of young people who have represented our school and our community in such a powerful way this year. I've been a great admirer of our football program for many years, and under the leadership of Coach Keith Holden, I feel that our young people represent everything good about high school athletics connected with the school. I think the lessons that they learned are not just about winning on the field. It is about growing into a responsible, dedicated, and proud young people. The success this team has had is unprecedented in Half Moon Bay history in Cabrillo Unified. This team was the PAL Bay Division champions, undefeated. They were the CCS Open Division 3 undefeated champions. They were the Northern California Division 3A undefeated champions, and played a tremendous game in down at the home field of a very good football team in Chula Vista. And yes, they came up short on the W end of it, yet their performance on the field, and if we had one more chance, that just like Vince Lombardi once said, we didn't lose the game, we just ran out of time. And that's what I feel that happened in that game. But most importantly, I am just so proud of these young people that represented us so well and truly are champions in every way. So I want to turn this over, the recognition of each of the players, to our coach and great leader, Coach Keith Holden.
So I just want to take a second just to thank everyone here. We've got a tremendous amount of support from the community and district and teachers and everyone in town, and it's a little bit overwhelming, but just want to say we appreciate it. I'm not going to give you guys a long speech. I know you have a long evening ahead of you. And I'm going to skip through all the names of the students who couldn't be here tonight, but I'm just going to call out the names of the students who are. Atticus Hart. Luis Antonio. Jake Perkins. Dylan Prosser. Brayson Young. JT Lahane. Oz Monroy. And Jose Martinez. Thank you all.
Thanks, Coach. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sounds good. Yeah. All right, the one and only Rob Martin. And Jessica Markbrider.
Our next recognition is to our boys varsity cross country team. This team, under the tutelage of our incredible coach, Paul Farnsworth, once again, as probably one of the leading programs in the state, consistently, always at the highest level, once again achieved tremendous. We took third place in the PAL, which is all the schools running one big division. We were second place in CCS and qualified for the state championships down in Fresno, and then in Fresno took a 15th place. Coach Farnsworth consistently has done great things with the team, and once again is another teacher in our district. I think the connection between not only what we do out on the athletic field, but there's such a tie-in between the classroom and our teachers and the success we're having on the athletic field. I'm proud to have come up to the podium here and announce his team, Coach Paul Farnsworth.
Thank you very much. I'd like to echo what Coach Holden said. Thank you for having us up here. We had an awful lot of support as well, but the highlight of the fall season was absolutely our football team. We had a great season ourselves, but man, we had a great time going out and watching you guys play. And I just want to say, amazing. You guys were amazing to watch. It was so much fun. So congratulations to you guys and Keith, dynamite. I have 7 boys here tonight that I'd like to recognize. Natan Christo Damon. Cole Wilkinson. Jared Matsukani. Nick Moore. James McKeechin. Arthur McKenzie. And John Helmlinger. I'd also like to recognize my assistant coach, of whom I could not have done any of this. She was dynamite the whole season. Her spirit just kept us going. And made me smile most of the time, kept the boys and girls very fierce throughout the season. Stephanie Roberts. Thank you very much.
Martha's going to do the next one. Yep, thanks.
Good evening. Today is El Granada night, and part of El Granada night is that I get to recognize a staff member at El Granada. As most things at El Granada, it's a team effort, and when I was putting out ideas for our staff recognition tonight, our leadership team and our staff all unanimously supported the decision tonight to recognize our food service person, Margie Galvin. Let me tell you a little bit about Margie before I have her come up here. She's been working with us for over 11 years. She's sort of the unsung hero of food service. She is accurate, and she is maniacal about proper food service. Nobody gets sick because of Margie's food. She also, though, goes the extra mile for all of our students. She was the one, as a teacher, I was a teacher at El Granada, and she came up to me, she says, I have this new book series that would be great for second graders. It's called The Lunch Lady. And for those of you that don't know, The Lunch Lady is actually a graphic novel series, which lots of young readers really love to read graphic novels. And Margie introduced that to us, and it's just really taken off. It's in our libraries, in our library and in our classroom library, and you'll see second graders today walking around with Lunch Lady books. Margie also dresses up our multi-use room thematically, so for across all the holidays. She's really always in the spirit of things. She renames the food during Halloween to Spooky Treats, which is always a fun way for our children to learn about puns, and they do feel like they're eating zombie bones, so it's great. But in addition to these types of things that she does on her job, the breakfast service and the lunch service, she also has participated in our award-winning Dolphin Club program, helping kids with their homework and doing the other activities that go along with the Dolphin Club. She has also volunteered countless times to help with our family fun nights. Oftentimes in our family fun nights, we serve food, and Margie's there to make sure that it's done safely and that the cleanup is done properly so that we're ready to go on Monday morning when she comes back. She's also come to all of our ELAC meetings to take care of the children during the ELAC meetings, and also again to serve food. She has a great sense of humor. She knows when to be serious, and she always collects all the money that's due her, which we love, and including from me. I owed her $1 and she wouldn't let that go, so it was good. So I do appreciate her. She's here tonight, and I'm really grateful that she's here tonight. She has a sick family member, and I talked to Marina into bringing her here, so I'm really happy to be here. A lot of our staff members have come tonight, in particular, to recognize Margie. So Margie, will you please come up here? She says thank you.
Thanks, Martha. Any comments from the public tonight? Green cards, anything? No? Okay. So we will move ahead to representative reports. Number 10, CUTA. Sean, welcome. Good to see you.
Nice to see you up here at the high school.
Absolutely.
Board members and superintendent, and of course my student and student board representative, Mr. Sarabia. Good to see you tonight. Well, a hearty congratulations to our football team. Bye, guys. And the cross-country team, of course. 3 years of CCS championship football and a cross-country team that regularly makes it for yearly visits to Fresno. It seems a constant, but the truth is change is here in our district, and the most painful and final change visited our small district this last week with the passing of John Evans, longtime music teacher, and of course Assistant Superintendent of Personnel, John Corey. These two men worked hard for the district, for the students of the coast side. They inspired and motivated, they read and reread, checked and rechecked to provide the students of this district with the best possible education. Their commitment and contribution was honorable. They will be missed on the coast side. But there is one thing that has not changed, and that's the C building here on the high school campus. I moved into the K building in 1999, a brand new building. The office was renovated the next year, followed shortly by the library in 2001. But the K building and others in our district have not changed in 50 years. 50 years of hard teenage use. I did a little math and figured 30 students in each class, 5 classes a day, 180 days a school year, by 50 years. 1,350,000 seatings of students in the C building, each classroom. Still standing, yes, but in desperate need of replacement, not renovation and not rejuvenation, but replacement. The district, the school community, and really the entire coastside community needs to address this pressing issue and come together to correct this and provide a better building for the next 50 years and beyond. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. CSEA. Diane, welcome. Good to see you.
First off, I'd like to say that I hope everyone had a nice holiday. And I would also like to say that I attended the vigil for John Corey last night and the funeral today. They were both very well done. CSEA has enjoyed their holidays, and we're now ready to get down to working with the district. We'll be polling our members to find out what they would like to reopen in the contract, as the district will be deciding what to reopen as well. We have an upcoming installation of officers' dinner on Saturday, January 27th in Redwood City. Our board will be remaining basically the same except for a vice president, which will be Jesse Nelson. And we look forward to meeting at the table for negotiations with the district. Thank you.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to reports. We're going to receive a report on El Granada Elementary School. Martha, welcome back up.
Okay. All right, it's all working. Nice. Good evening, members of the school board, Superintendent Easter. I'm pleased to be here tonight to give you a presentation on El Granada Elementary School, and with the assistance of staff who feel like my professional family. Here on the first slide, we have what I call El Granada by the numbers. The numbers, of course, are really important. It's sort of how we get our funding and everything. But through the course of the evening tonight, I'm going to take you sort of behind the numbers, introduce you to the people in the programs, the staff, our parents, and of course our beautiful children who come in to learn and grow with us every day. I also want to just draw your attention on this slide that at El Granada we are a two-program school. In addition to our wonderful neighborhood elementary school, we also have the district special education special day class program at our school. So I'll be talking to you a little bit about that tonight. The 4 years that I've been making presentations to the board, I have been remiss in not talking about this program. So tonight I will take care of that. We'll start with our goals, and of course our goals for our school are deeply connected to the local control accountability plan and our school site plan, that every student is reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, and that every English learning student is reclassified by the end of 5th grade. This is a goal that we talk about constantly. It's a goal. These goals are talked about at our goal setting conferences with our parents. They're part of our collaboration days. They're part of our professional development days. They're never far from our mind. The second two goals sometimes seem like fuzzy goals or feel-good goals, but they're actually probably the most important goals, which is that when you pull out a cube folder of a 5th grader and you look at the pictures that we put on there, starting in kindergarten through 5th grade, when you look at that kindergarten, you'll always look at a kindergarten and you will see in their eyes wonder, curiosity, excitement, engagement, and a little bit of chattiness coming right through that picture. You want to see that same look in that picture when that child is in 5th grade. You want to see that same spark in their eyes, that you've only really fanned the flame and made it, had them be more curious, that you've given them the tools to grow with their unique gifts and talents. And so that's why I put those other two goals on there, because it's a very important part of what we do. We'll start the trip around El Granada School by talking about our core program. We have a robust balanced literacy program, our language arts program, that's fully aligned with the Common Core standards. And our core pieces are reading and writing workshop. I'll talk more about us being named a project school by Teachers College and what that means for our language arts program. But some of the important components of that program is that students have choice in the books that they read, so we know what level they're reading at, but they get to choose, so it kind of excites, they have a lot of interest in the text, so they choose books that are at their just right reading level, not too hard, not too easy. And then they also have books that are teacher selected that are at their instructional level, so that spiral is always constantly going up. We're always kind of putting the pedal down on getting their reading for them to read more fluently and also to be able to read more complex texts, both in fiction and nonfiction reading. And then, of course, in the reading program is similar in that students have a choice in the topics that they're choosing, which again is that engagement piece, while they're learning the 3 Common Core types of writing, which are narrative, informational, and opinion writing, kindergarten through 5th grade. And these strategies, or these reading and writing workshop, are rich in the use of English language learner strategies, which include high levels of visual charts for children to be able to refer to. We also use sentence frames so that kids are able to structure their oral language and use English properly, and see English in their own writing and see it in their reading, and then also be able to speak orally consistently. And then we have consistent language and learning structures so that their learning is predictable, the structures are predictable. We also make use of writing rubrics and writing checklists that are actually student-friendly so that the students are able to see how their writing is growing through each of the genres. We have a comprehensive math curriculum with a focus on math fluency. Math fluency is different than reading fluency. When it's not referring to speed, it's actually referring to flexibility and how flexible you are in the use of numbers and the application of concepts across a variety of different problem-solving strategies. We have hands-on science in K through 3 and lab science in 4th and 5th grade, and a rigorous and engaging social studies curriculum, which includes our children going out into the Bay Area weekly, exploring history, California history, Native American history, and the community around them, kindergarten through 5th grade. And of course, we have a designated English language development curriculum, which is focused on teaching children the forms and functions of English language. That program, children are divided into groups where they have similar language ability, and they're taught more and more complex structures of English language so they can tackle their academic content areas in math, reading, writing, science, and social studies. This is our slide on our special education program. The district has a special day program for students who qualify. They have an intensive classroom program developed to meet the specific needs and challenges of their particular learning or physical disability. Our program ranges from pre-K to 5th grade, meaning that there are 3-year-olds on our campus for part of our school day. And our teachers who teach that program, I don't know if Katie made it, yay. Katie Handelman teaches our pre-K and kindergarten program. Katie, can you stand up? There you go. And then Carol Owens teaches 1st grade through 3rd grade. And then it overlaps with Miss Souza, who teaches our 4th and 5th grade program, but sometimes there's 3rd graders. It depends on the needs of the students. The program, it's an individualized program to meet students' needs academically, socially, but an important part of the program is the program isn't a side-by-side program with our general ed program. It's actually very integrated with our general ed program. All of the students that are able actually are included in our general ed program across all areas of our general ed program. So in addition to recess and lunch, physical education, library, art, music. They also participate in English language development, reading, writing, social studies. Children in our special day program participate in all of our general education field trips as they are able to. But there's also some unique things like participation in the Special Olympic program. It's wonderful to see how our teachers, all of our teachers work together to make sure that all of our kids feel like they're a vibrant part of the whole community. And our special education program is a real tribute to our program that Carol, Linda, and Katie have developed so well. Just a little bit about them. Katie is also our SST coordinator, so she brings her expertise in special ed to our student study team, which is so when kids are starting to fall behind academically, we have a student study team, and we actually have like sort of an expert in the field sort of making a charge on that and to help us maybe put some interventions in place early on. Katie's wonderful at that. Linda, her class has kind of become our community service class. So like last year we did a community service project where we did a recycle crayon project, and Linda's class was the one that promoted the program. They did a fundraiser so that we could raise the money for the postage, and her class is always sort of rising to that level, keeping us giving back to the community as students and teachers, and Linda's always at the forefront of that, and of course that makes our whole community whole again. And then Carol and I have been working together for a long time. We used to be neighbors. My classroom was right next to her classroom. And she's always taken a big interest in the kindness campaign or their positive behavior intervention and support programs, helping to run the programs, put family fun nights together. And she actually has a friendship group where lunchtime, kids match each other up with the children in her class, and they go to her class and they do art projects or friendship projects together. And Carol's been instrumental in bringing a lot of great friendship to our school with our students. So I'm really pleased that they're here, and I kind of want to just give them a little round of applause. Also with us tonight, all of our schools have resource specialists on campus for targeted intervention for children, whereas a small pull-out program. We've been really fortunate to recruit Mike Berrigan, and he's here tonight too, and I just wanted to recognize him for his efforts on that behalf. Moving along, I want to talk about our enrichment programs, so that we're educating the whole student. We have a wonderful physical education program, partly funded by our PTOs. Our K-3 program is funded by our PTO. We have Rebecca Goodell. And then our 4th and 5th grade program is run by Angel Gonzalez, and she's pretty amazing. She loves what she's doing. And if she corners you, you're going to be talking to her for an hour because she really loves what she's doing. But Angel's also responsible for our APE classes. So those are, I forget what the A stands for. Adaptive PE classes, thank you, Superintendent. And she had to go to school for 2 years to get the certificate, but the adaptive PE allows her to provide those services to our students in the special day classes. And so, for students who qualify, Angel provides those services, specialized physical education class. We have music. We partner with Music for Minors, where children learn vocal, instrumental, and theory. And we also have a partnership with Cunha, where our fifth graders are also learning band. We participate in our In Action curriculum, where our students are learning the foundations of drawing and painting, and also a little bit of art history about various artists. Our librarian is working on upgrading our library to a 21st century library, where we're using our books and our research abilities to sort of as a springboard to more of a maker space or an engineering space, where kids are learning things in books and then trying things out. At first, Library Lynn was like, if that's the librarian you want, I'm not sure that's me. And then I said, where's your growth mindset? And the next thing I know, I have a thing on my desk to see if I'll pay for her to go to a 21st century makerspace library place. So we're moving in that direction, and I'm really excited to have Library Lynn on board around that. As I mentioned before, we go on field trips all the time. Our kindergartners are getting ready to go to the 49ers Museum, where they'll be learning literacy. A lot of our fathers sign up to go on that field trip, and then they don't realize it's a literacy field trip, but it's all right. They do get to see the stadium. We go to the zoo, we go to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, we go to missions. We have field trips come to us. We're having opera in the schools. Darcy Tucker comes and does a great deal on westward expansion with our fifth grade students. It's our children do get up and go out and see the world at El Granada. We have 2 after-school programs, a really wonderful after-school kindergarten program where we were fortunate enough to hire someone who's an early childhood educator, and she creates some thematic units which actually support the literacy and the math work that we're doing in school. And of course, we have our Kent Award-winning Dolphin Club program for our 4th and 5th graders. And I don't know that Lori Mayotte knows how to say no to anything. Those kids, they're dancing, they're doing different kinds of martial arts, they do all kinds of art projects, computers, robotics. It's a really robust program in addition to all the cooking and that sort of thing. For years, they were like the award winners down at the Ritz-Carlton for the gingerbread houses, but the Ritz-Carlton hadn't been doing it. So they made this big, gigantic gingerbread house, and they donated it to the senior center this year. So that program is a really wonderful program for our kids. All of our children don't always advance at the same rate, and some of them find certain content areas difficult to be achieving in and achieve at the levels where we feel comfortable that they'll be successful in high school. So we do have additional supports for them. Reading intervention is a support that we start really early. We have a kindergarten intervention, in fact, for our kindergarten students, and then our reading interventions teacher really works with our K through 3 students, and also has time to work with some of our 4th and 5th graders as well. It's really an individual program, really small groups of kids trying to give them that extra bump to get to their reading level. Lexia is a computer intervention system. What I like about it is that it's web-based, so the students can do it in the library downtown or at home. Or after school at our after-school program. We also participate with the Schooling Services program, which is a mental health program. Our counselor has 20 hours a week on our campus, provides prevention services, prevention services in the way of talking, anti-bullying curriculum, intervention services to help kids who may be out of sorts for any number of reasons, and of course an education component, not only for kids but for parents and teachers as well. And we are fully participating in our school-wide positive behavior intervention and support initiative. If you haven't heard me say it yet, let me say it now. At El Granada, we swim with the dolphins. S is for be safe. Come on. S is for be safe, W is for work hard, be inclusive, and make good choices. So we're constantly swimming at El Granada, and in fact on Tuesday, our upcoming Super Tuesday, we will be looking at our PBIS data and looking at ways to help children who are having a little bit of a hard time pulling up on our behavior expectations. And I want to talk about our people. At El Granada, we put a premium on professional development. We have many, many different ways where teachers can continue to sharpen their saw in the areas that are most critical to us, literacy and math. So the district this year is providing professional development on 3 Super Tuesdays around math. Our site-based professional development this year is around the positive behavior intervention and support. We also have a mindfulness component attached to that. We have a literacy-based professional development this year. For each of our grade levels, our K through 2 grade levels and our 3 through 5 grade levels, we're being provided with funding from CEF, Teachers College Professional Development. So we've been named a project school, and as a project school, we have access to senior staff developers from Teachers College at Columbia University, and they come to our school and they work with our teachers hands-on in the areas of need to get us to help us to more fully respond to our students' needs. And then we also have built into our school site plan an opportunity for individualized professional development. So if a teacher sees a workshop or a seminar that they would like to attend in the areas of English language arts or English language development, there's money in the site plan to pay for the workshop and also to pay for the release time for the teacher to go. Sadly, there's no money in the budget for food. And teachers have taken advantage of that opportunity. This is the second year in a row we've been able to do it, and teachers have taken advantage of that opportunity. We do use our collaboration time to talk and work on our teaching techniques and strategies, to examine student work and to examine our own practice. We also use our collaboration time to examine formal and informal assessments and to determine next steps as part of the cycle of inquiry. At El Granada, we also participate in data conferences. Teachers are given release time, and we meet teachers, myself and our reading intervention teacher. We meet, we look at our student data, we look at the interventions that we have tried, and we make adjustments. We try to have 2 data conferences a year for all of our teachers. Finally, we get to our partners. Our English Learner Advisory Committee, I'm really proud how much that committee has grown since I've been a principal. Initially, I was sort of the gatherer of information and the presenter of information, and now in conjunction with the fine work that's going on in the DLAC, our families are coming forward to me and they're saying they want to make presentations to the families. So we've had a presentation at our last ELAC meeting on attendance and the importance of attendance coming from parents who had attended a really great workshop at the DLAC learning about attendance. So parents presenting to parents about the importance of attendance. Parents also presenting to parents about how to help your child if they have qualified for special education, and parents talking to parents about the process for reclassification. So while I feel like I still have a role on that committee, I'm really excited about how parents are feeling really empowered to be able to provide information to each other and get more information out to more parents that may not be able to attend our meetings. We also partner with our parent-teacher organization. Parents volunteer in the classroom. They volunteer on field trips as drivers, and they also are a big fundraising arm. As I mentioned, our PE program and our music program are both funded by our PTO. A small portion of our library program is funded by the PTO. They also provide supply stipends to our teachers every year, and I know that that our teachers are really grateful for that. And it's a wonderful, healthy, thriving parent organization. I think we all feel really supported. The HEAL Project has developed a really good partnership with El Granada, I'm happy to say. We have a lunchtime food program where they come in and they teach kids how to eat food, how to make healthy salads and how to eat fruits and vegetables, and they make a great a great dish for the kids to try to eat, kind of get them out of their carbohydrate palate a little bit. And we also have been partnering with them with the field trips over to the farm in Clipper Ridge. And our 3rd graders have been participating in it regularly, and it's 2 field trips that they go on in the fall and then in the spring. And they plant and they harvest, or actually for us we harvest and then we plant, and then we harvest and then we plant. So it actually provides provides an opportunity for kids to think about things in terms of narrative. What was the experience they had at the farm? In terms of opinion, like what do they feel about ecology and everything? And in terms of information, like how do you grow things? What is the cycle of, what is the food cycle, that sort of thing. So it has become kind of a mentor text for us as well in our literacy program. And then of course, Cabrillo Education Foundation has been supporting us with our professional development with Teachers College and also with materials for our classroom libraries. We also have special events at our school. Arts and Science Day is our big event, kind of like our crown jewel event. Parents and outside providers do workshops or little mini field trips in the areas of art and science. They're all hands-on, so kids actually dig in and they make catapults and they do 3D printing and they do mask making and painting and collage and slime making and ice cream making and dancing and fencing and wrestling. And it's a really wonderful day. Kids do anywhere between 3 and 5 workshops. I'm happy to say that Ms. Hines' son is actually going to be presenting a workshop this year, so it's very exciting, and it's for free, so yay on that. We have a talent show that's coming up, Loteria Night, which is like a lottery, like a bingo night. And then we have a math night, which is actually a lot of fun. I didn't think people would think it was fun. I thought we needed to name it something else, but we name it Math Night, and we just fill up the multi-use room. We have family fun events like movie nights and game nights and those kinds of things. And Heidi's, you're still here, Heidi? Heidi's here. Heidi is a parent at our school as well and a wonderful TK teacher and the chairperson of the Sweetheart Dance, where fathers and daughters and mothers and sons or any combination of parent and child come, and we have a really wonderful dance to which I have found that I have a DJ talent. So, so anyway, it's an exciting, it was beautiful last year. It was really beautiful. There's nothing, twinkly lights make every room look great, and we have a lot of twinkly lights in the multi-use room for that event. And we also have a fun run for kids to help us raise money. It's a wonderful place. We do all these things, and we do have a positive impact on our children. And so I just had 3 little data points that I wanted to bring to you related to our goals. We've been working really hard on our positive behavior intervention and support. 92% of our students have not received a referral this year. That's an increase of 12% over last year. So at the same time, we had about 80% of our kids who were referral free. So that feels really good. And then to speak to our English learner students, our goal of having all of our English learner students reclassified by the end of 5th grade. And I'm grateful to Superintendent Euster for creating multiple paths for children to achieve this. But 57% of our 5th graders this fall were 57% of our English learner students, so students who have not yet been reclassified, were on track to be reading at grade level by the end of the year. So we're thinking that 57 or almost 60% of our students who have yet to be reclassified will be reclassified by the end of this year. And we hope to be able to provide enough intervention and support that we can put all the rest of the students on the path to reclassification as well. And then, of course, our reading goal of having all of our students reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade. At our fall benchmark this year, 61% of all of our 3rd grade students were on track to meet or exceed their reading benchmark, which is an increase of 10% from last year. And looking at our data and some of the supports that we're putting in for our students, it's our hope that we can get that up to about 75% of our kids at the end of this year. And then I just wanted to thank, we really are a neighborhood school, a community school, and we have so many people that come and offer their help and their services to our school that we want to thank the Half Moon Bay community for all their help, support, and encouragement. Our district partners, of course, are critical. You all are really critical to us, and we want to thank you for that. And of course, our family and students are the reasons why we get up every day, and I get up every day. I hope you guys do too, but I get up every day, and I love coming into school, and I love the campus that I work on, and the children that we work with, and of course the teachers and the staff members are just wonderful. It's an honor, and that's my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions, Martha? No.
No questions. I'll just make a comment.
Yeah, please.
Just to thank you so much, Martha. I think that you gave an excellent presentation, and just really to see the quality of leadership I think that you've brought to the table here, and really demonstrating, I guess, telling us both the qualitative and the quantitative story. I really appreciate like the hard facts and the numbers, but also kind of a little bit the vision that you outlined with your goals and how that's really a consistent core part of the framework of everything that you do there, both in the kind of, again, the hard goals around literacy, but also the more, I don't say philosophical or emotional goals around learning and building lifelong learners. And I think that mix is really key. So, thank you for leading that charge.
Great, thank you, I appreciate it.
I had just one other comment, and thank you as well. Regarding the language you used around curriculum that included the arts and PE. You talked about curriculum for the whole child, so thank you for that. I often choke on the word enrichment,
Right.
knowing that it's a whole suite of cognitive experiences that optimize learning. So as we work in the future, thank you, right on point.
Thank you very much, yes, we're happy that we're able to offer that.
And I just have a question. Sorry, Martha.
Okay.
And it's, obviously the district and the board have a lot of focus on improving literacy across the district. And when you look at the second bullet on your impact page regarding 57% of students and the increase of 15% from the prior year, that's great progress. Help us all learn together, what would you say were the attributes at the school and in your change in your processes that allowed that kind of change to happen?
I think for us, I come in, I give you a number like 57%, but when we're at the school site, we talk about actually who those children are and what those barriers might be to their success. And then we start working one student at a time on making sure that they have a good fit with their teacher, that they have a good fit with the work that they're doing, and we want to be checking in with them all the time. And again, I started with this idea about if you can look at their cume folder and see their pictures. You want to catch kids where maybe the light might not be as bright as it was when they were in kindergarten. You want to catch them and you want to say, it's not over yet, you can still do this, we can help you. What books do you want to read? What interests you? And to be enthusiastic about who they are. And when we start in third grade, we start saying, who are you? What is it that you need? What is making us feel like you're being held back? Where can we help with that? And whether it's in the way the instruction has been delivered in the past and that instruction needs to change, whether it's we need to give them access to books that they're super interested in. And so the answer to your question is once we know who the children are who are struggling, we start to look at them as individuals and say, what do they need individually? So it's not just our special day students or our students who have identified disabilities who have individualized education plans. All of our children have individualized learning plans. We're trying to think in those terms.
Great, thank you. And the way you presented it really did feel like true community at El Granada, so thanks for that.
Martha, before you leave, could I just ask one question?
There's
Sorry.
a lot of you.
So really,
Moving on down the line here. Here I am. I'm intrigued by the 15% growth rate in English acquisition. Especially in light of LCAP goals and the 3 to 5% that were expressed in the last presentation by Joy. Have you been increasing, have you seen this rate of growth for the last 2 or 3 years? Is this a one-off, or where are we on that? It's remarkable.
It's inconsistent, so we're like the other elementary schools. Sometimes we can get up to that 60, 65%, and we're really trying to break through where we're consistently getting to the 70 and 80% group and what we're looking at. So it's not, we do see a nice bump in 5th grade, but what we want to see is more consistent growth across the time that children are at our school. And that's a big piece that we're working on, so that I can stand here before you and say, yes, year over year, we are really knuckling under and getting this right. And right now, we're really digging in on what work is required to get that right, and so to make it more consistent.
So it wasn't 15% the year before?
It wasn't 15% the year before.
Well, great progress, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Real quick, Martha, I just have to say something as well. I had the pleasure.
we have 17 more questions.
I have no
Just
questions,
settle it.
just a few
All right.
comments. Just a few comments. I had the pleasure of attending your graduation last spring, and I want to say that I did see on all of those kids' faces the smiles and the love and the wonder. So saw that, and then for the presentation, a few more pictures of those kids with those smiles would have been wonderful as well.
Yes.
So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again. So still under reports, we're on B. We're going to welcome back Joy for part 2, continuing from last meeting on the strategic education update for goals 3 and 4 this time. Welcome, Joy.
Good evening, Board President Papalardo, trustees of the board. It's my pleasure to come to you today to present the second half of our strategic education plan, goals 3 and 4. And as you know, goals 1 and 2 really have more of an academic focus. It looks at literacy and college and career readiness. And when we talk about goals 3 and 4, we are actually going to be looking more, as we've been talking about, the whole child. As a reminder, the local control accountability plan comes out of the local control funding formula. We also refer to it in our district as our strategic education plan because it's that important to us. We want to use it not just as an accountability measure, but as a really thorough and thoughtful plan about how we're addressing the educational needs of all students in our district. Goal 3 and 4 specifically are about parent engagement and safe and supported schools. Goal 3 is specifically to implement a stakeholder communication plan to support parent involvement and regular updates. There are several strategies within Goal 3 that are written in our strategic education plan. That includes providing bilingual community liaisons at each site, so that any time that a parent wants to be able to communicate with a school office or a teacher about the needs of their student, whether it's in English or Spanish, they have direct access to the school at all times. We also are working on our digital communication, including the website, as well as texting and other ways of communicating with families. We have school sites who are working with the Family Engagement Institute through the San Mateo County Office of Education. We have several parent education events, and this year we had a wellness fair actually in this room in December, which was well attended, and it was quite exciting to see the community come out for that. Our Director of Categorical Programs also supports in training and outreach, the training of those community liaisons to make sure that they're well prepared in both the educational language that they need to convey from the teachers, but also understanding and working with parents in the ways that the parents are able to communicate and want to communicate with the schools. The Director of Categorical Programs is also works closely with parents through outreach. We have our Panorama Survey, and this is listed under Goal 3, which is about parent engagement, but the Panorama Survey not only includes parents, it also includes staff and students. One of the major goals that was stated in our strategic education plan last year was to increase the target for our climate survey. That is the climate survey that's given in the fall of every year. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're actually hearing from a large group of parents, because that greatly changes how we view the results depending on who is actually responding. We put a lot of effort in actually getting the survey prepared and then making sure that it's accessible in English, in Spanish, and also in written as well as oral formats, so that parents who aren't able to or don't want to necessarily read through it have other ways of accessing it and getting support through talking with somebody and actually filling the survey out. Especially with our Spanish survey, we wanted to make sure that parents had somebody there to help understand what some of the questions we're asking, because when we're translating, we need to do more than translate words. We need to also translate the concepts and ideas, and that's where the interpretation of having someone skilled helps with that work. We're pleased to report that our participation rate from fall 2015 to fall 2016 went up by 7%, from 18% to 25%. And again, these were the goals that were set forth for last year's LCAP that I'm reporting on. As preliminary data indicates for 2017, we've also increased from 25%, an additional 7%, to 32% this year. In looking at, before we leave goal 3, I want to just add that there are a couple of new metrics that we are adding in our new strategic education plan that we're measuring this very school year. And I want to report those to you because you will be seeing them in the LCAP updates that you see in the spring. And those are that we're looking at the percent of representation of subgroups in our family leadership or our parent leadership meetings, specifically in our English language advisory committees and our school site councils. We also are intentionally increasing the number of parent engagement events that's tailored to the needs of each school site. In looking at goal 4,
Joy, do you recall any examples of those different engagements?
The parent engagement?
Yeah, just as a...
Yes, I will give you an example. Last Thursday at Fair Lawn View, I attended as a parent a literacy night, and this reading intervention teacher, Rachel Sage, did a really great presentation, including families that spoke English and Spanish located at Fair Lawn View. And the focus was about literacy. How do you read with your child about books and then talk to them about what happened? The specific technique that she was sharing was having them read something and then use the technique of saying what happened first, next, then, and then finally, or at last, what happened. So that's an example. And to share, that was only one of 2 of those events. The second event was held, I think it's this week, at Moonridge, so that we have the ability to have satellite meetings as well. That's one example.
Very helpful, thank you very
I
much.
can give you many, but
No,
that's one.
that's great. It's a little context, I appreciate it.
So with Strategic Education Plan Goal 4, the goal is to create a positive school climate where students feel safe and supported. The strategies that we've been utilizing for Goal 4 are, as Martha had addressed, the positive behavior interventions and supports. This looks different at different schools, depending on the age group, depending on the decisions that the school made. But for example, at El Granada, they use the acronym SWIM. And at Fair Lawn View, for example, they talk about be safe, be respectful, be responsible. Some schools have different variations to include be kind. One of the greatest examples of the positive behavior interventions and supports is actually part of the building at Pillarcitos. It's the words that go across the top, which are compassionate, respectful, and responsible. So thank you very much. So you can actually see the physical evidence of the positive behaviors, interventions, and supports. The goal is to have it written around, and at Pillarcitos they took it to a whole different level of making sure everybody knew what those goals were. We also have district-wide attendance and truancy notification procedures, transportation for at-risk students, wellness services for students, school-linked services, and academic counseling services. These are all funded through the Strategic Education Plan as well as different other sources of funding. One of our goals in attendance is to increase the attendance rate, was to increase the attendance rate for 16-17 by 0.2%. The attendance rate means it's the total number of student attendance divided by the number of days that students are enrolled. I will tell you that one of the tricky things about finding what this attendance rate is that, for example, at elementary school, it's easy to see when a student is in class or not. At the high school, at the middle school, they start to go by period attendance, and it starts to make it really tricky in terms of calculation, which I will explain a little bit why that's important. Our attendance rate from 2015-16 was 96.2%, and it remained flat. It was 96.1%. It didn't really go up. It was a slight decrease by 0.1%. In consultation with the county, they actually suggested that because our attendance rate is so high, we should just keep it above 96%. I wanted to find out a little bit more specifically, what's the county average, what's the state average, and it's hard to find that published data. And the reason why is because of the way that people calculate attendance rates. Because the way that people calculate attendance rates, it makes it hard to be able to compare school districts to each other because people do things differently. That's one of the reasons why the counties moved toward using chronic absence instead of attendance rates as the way they measure attendance for students. That brings me to our chronic absence target. Last year, we set our chronic absence target to decreasing it by 0.2%. Chronic absence is calculated by looking at the number of students who are missing at least 10% of school days in a year for any reason. This is excused or unexcused. In Cabrillo, this would be equivalent to 18 or more school days in 1 year for a student who's enrolled for 180 school days. If you have a student who's enrolled for 30 days, the chronic attendance number would be 3. For the 16-17 school year, the state is started to calculate the chronic absence rate. So this is the very first year that we're getting this data from the California Department of Education, so we don't have 15-16 data to compare it directly with the data that's being published by the state. But we do know that Cabrillo Unified is at 9.1%, and comparing to the San Mateo County, which is at 10.2%, and the state, which is at 10.8%, that we do have a lower chronic absence rate in comparison to the state and county. When we talk about those internal calculations, the ones that are not published, I can tell you that in our internal calculations, the rate change was from 6.9 to 7.0%, which again is similarly flat. One of the other pieces that the state looks at is the truancy rate. Our goal set in 16-17 was to decrease the truancy rate by 5%. In California, a student is considered truant if he or she is absent or tardy by more than 30 minutes of instruction without a valid excuse 3 times during the school year. The truancy rate for Cabrillo Unified went from 22.4% to 23.9%. Once again, these are internal calculations. When we look, the 16-17 rate, that's an internal calculation because our 16-17 rate was not yet published. In 15-16, when you look at our CUSD rate of 22.4%, it compares to the county, which was 25.8%. So quick math, we were at least over 3% below. And then the state at that same time period, their published rate was 34%. So we were 11% below the state rate, or 10% below the state rate. Again, we had that calculation internally because our rate hasn't been published for 16-17 yet. The next goal is the suspension rate target. Our goal was to monitor and maintain suspension rates to be below 3%. Our suspension rate decreased from 3.6% in 15-16 to 2.6%. The county suspension rate, for comparison, in the 16-17 year, when we had 2.6%, the county rate was 3.0, and the state suspension rate at the same time was 3.6%. So again, we were below both state and county suspension rate averages. Similarly, we look at the expulsion rate, and our goal is to monitor and maintain the expulsion rate to be below 0.1%. Our 15-16 expulsion rate was 0. Our 16-17 expulsion rate was 0.06%. I know that sometimes you want to know numbers, that's 2. That's 2. The county suspension rate for the same time period in 16-17 was 0.06%, equivalent to ours, and the state suspension rate was slightly higher at 0.09%. The next rate that we look at in safe and supported schools is to look at our dropout rate. We want to monitor and decrease the high school dropout rate by 0.3%, and then to monitor and maintain the middle school dropout rate at less than 0.1%. We do not yet have the 16-17 data because, again, that's calculated at the state level. So that you understand how the dropout rate works, they actually look at the cohort of students who started with us as freshmen, and then find out who dropped out along the way and who was not re-enrolled at another school somewhere else. So that's why the state calculates it. They have information linked to student ID numbers that we don't have access to. So we're not able to give you a calculation for that this year. In 15-16, our dropout rate for the high school level, grades 9 through 12, was 3.6%. And in grades 6 to 8, it was less than 0.1%. This is trending down because in 14-15, it was 4.7%, which went down to 3.6%. And then at the middle school level, it maintained. I know that as I've been comparing the county and state rates, in 15-16, that same year, the county rate was 6.8%, and the state was 9.7%. So again, we were about 50% of the county rate and only a third of the state rate for the dropout rate. Our next target that we were looking at closely was the graduation rate. Similarly to the dropout rate, this is looking at all of the students who started off in the first year, and then looking at how many students actually graduated high school at the end. Our goal was to increase our graduation rate by 0.5%. Similarly, because it is calculated at the state level, we do not have the information for 16-17 yet, but our graduation rate for Half Moon Bay High was 97.2%, and for Cabrillo as a whole, 89.8%. That same year, the state average was 83.8%, and the county average was close to our district average, which was our district graduation rate, which was 89.4%. My final thoughts to share with you this evening about Goal 3 and 4 is that overall, we've established a strong foundation in parent engagement and safe and supported schools. And while we've surpassed the state and county averages, we're committed to the continuous improvement as we analyze the data and continue to do community outreach for our strategic education plan process. I also want to take this moment, as my colleague John Corey passed away after I was able to finish this presentation, I also want to acknowledge his leadership as a colleague and mentor, specifically for Goal 4 of the strategic education plan, because much of the work that he had done in the district as well as with his team was specifically on suspensions, expulsions, truancy, attendance, chronic absence, dropout rates. And I want to acknowledge him and his leadership in this as one of my final thoughts in this presentation. Thank you, and do you have any questions?
Thanks, Chair, for the presentation. Board?
Yeah, I had a few questions about Goal 4 and the different rates that we have to keep track of. And my understanding was that some of those are required by the state, and some of them are, because some of our LCAP goals we come up with all on our own, and some are required to be in there because the state says every district has to be comparing these. Are all of these the state requirements, or are some of these ones we've chosen to do? So suspension, truancy, chronic absence, attendance.
So that's a great question, Freya, and I will tell you that the state does change their mind often. So one of the things that I want to know, and I'm going to ask them about, is can we finally take the attendance rate out and just use chronic absence if you're not even publishing it anymore, or do we need to keep that in? So I will say that based on the requirements for last year's local control accountability plan, not our district idea of a strategic education plan, but the actual legal document that we need to turn in and have approved, those were the elements that they asked us to include.
So those do all have to be included per the state?
Yes.
Okay. Because sometimes I feel like, although they're important, they tend to be indicative of other things that are actually causing educational lapses. So, chronic truancy, chronic absence and truancies and other things can be systemic of issues going on with people's families or poverty or other kinds of issues that can cause educational lapses. And so they can be indicative of that, but not necessarily the problem themselves. And so that kind of came up some in that family engagement seminar that we went to a year ago. So I was just wondering how much flexibility we had and kind of looking at what are we looking at here, what are we judging, what are we really trying to get at when we're looking at these numbers. And I think students in terms of goal 1 and 2 is really what we're getting at. But yeah, I understand that they're required by the state. So.
I think one thing to share is that these are what I would call screeners. They're a way that we can look at a quick overview to see what are the problem areas that we really need to focus on. And I think based on the presentation that I gave last year, there were some pieces that we saw that we said, we really need to focus on this and figure this out a little bit more. But they want to do those quick screeners across all districts, and I think these are those indicators. But we understand that even though there's an indicator that might tell us something, there's always a greater story behind every single one of these.
Thank you, Joy.
So just building on the chronic absence one, and I wouldn't expect you to have an answer right now, but maybe in the future we can look at the correlation between students that are struggling academically and that chronic absence. Because I think what also gets factored in there are students that have dealt with illness or have had other reasons to be out of school. You know, how many sick kids are going on college tours, you know, so they don't get a unexcused absence. And I don't know if there's other ways to classify those kinds of things. So just food for thought for the future.
I think that just so that you know what our process is in looking at chronic absence, we do look at it similarly to what Martha Ladd had shared. When we start to see students who are at risk, students who start hitting certain percentages, we do follow up with them to find out more about what's happening as part of our process.
Right. Because if it is an illness or something else and they're able to keep up, then we don't want to penalize them. So.
Yes, and chronic absence is, whether it's excused or unexcused, it's the way that the state measures it.
Thanks for that presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The question I have is, has anybody ever calculated how much revenue is lost through elective absences? Say the extended vacations or whatever. I mean, the state looks at it whether if you're 30 minutes late for truancy, and obviously people get sick. But then there's also these elective absences, not necessarily looking at colleges, but, you know, well, we needed a 4-day weekend as a, call it family therapy, whatever. But what's the financial impact to the district of absence on an annual basis? Anybody know?
That's a great question, and I will tell you that I will turn it over to Crystal Leach.
I bet you will.
Well, as you can see, I wrote, from what the state comparative for their amount of abstinence to Cabrillo's Cabrillo is quite high. I actually wrote myself a note on the presentation, like, why are they using the chronic abstinent rate? Why are they using that ratio versus the ADA ratio, which is what our funding is based off? So, like, I wrote that down to go back and to look at that because it seems like it's complicated. But this is a step in this long journey of uniting the curriculum side and the fiscal side of the house. And as they update our software and update the LCAP, I think they will start to tie that to the ADA. Our district's ADA is above 90%. It is reported at first and second interim in the criterion standards area. So as far as our students being in seats and qualifying, because they don't actually, the average daily attendance, the ADA, the funding mechanism, doesn't look at excused absences or not. So if you're not here, there's no funding. So that is definitely something we try to share with our parents and so forth. As far as the funding mechanism goes, obviously, there's a lot of value outside of funding that happens when the child is in school. So it's correct, but it equates to a couple $100 a day. That's per student.
The question and a comment, the question relates to this discussion, and I think Freya initially brought up about the goals and what the metrics that we're looking at. And so just to clarify from my understanding, we do have the flexibility as we think about our plan as more of a meaningful strategic education plan rather than the LCAP elements that are required by the state, to incorporate metrics that we feel are meaningful, are representing whether or not we're achieving the goal of a safe and supported school, right? Because these required metrics really are mostly around, like, are they showing up to school, like measured in different ways. So it'd be interesting to explore what metrics we can use, some quantitative, maybe some more qualitative, that really say, do they feel safe? And maybe it's panorama, or maybe it's something else. But it'd be interesting to see as we embark on the update, the next update, like what, how we broaden those metrics that we're looking at and checking the boxes that we need to check as well.
And I will share that these metrics that I shared with you tonight were the ones that were written in the 14-15 school year, 15-16 school year for the 16-17 school year. And the metrics for the 17-18 school year are different, and they actually include panorama as a metric.
Okay.
So panorama is already included as a metric in the LCAP for this school year.
Okay.
And so we do have some flexibility in using local indicators as well as these other indicators that the state is asking us to look at. One of the things is that our LCAP right now has probably, off the top of my head, 20 metrics or more, plus looking at subgroups within some of those metrics.
Okay.
And I think it's one of the things that we want to do is we want to make it really comprehensible to people who look at it. So I think that I would love to hear more about what other metrics we could consider. Also understanding that we want to keep it as simple as possible because it is a public document that we want people to be able to access as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and to make it meaningful, I think will help the access issue for sure. And I just wanted to make a comment on goal 3 to just acknowledge some of the work that I've seen around the district, around supporting and empowering the DLACs and the ELACs, as well as the school site councils. I think engagement through those more formal mechanisms, although maybe not the way that parents always naturally want to be engaged, I think is so super critical because of the roles those organizations play. So I just want to thank Irene Preciado in particular for all the work she's done with the DLAC and the ELACs, in addition to the community liaisons and like the 100 other jobs that she does for us. But also to the principals for their work with the school site councils as well. And let's continue to grow all of those fronts.
And on behalf of all of us, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Trey. All right, well, we'll move on to discussion items, of which there are none, so we can check that off. And we'll move to communications board members. Freya, would you like to start this evening?
Wanted to say Happy New Year to everyone, and I want to take a moment just to send condolences to the whole community for the loss of John Corey and John Evans, and in particular to their families. Just really feel for all of them right now. This must be a very difficult time. Also for the loss of our district and our community for both of those, and the contributions that they've made over the years, just to say thank you to their spirit as they leave. And then I also wanted to thank this community once again for all the support over and over. I wanted to pull out one little comment from the audit report, that 87% of our funding comes from our local community. And the quote from the audit on page 10 was, "The community as a whole is the primary support for the district." And I think that that's just really true in many ways, not just the financial that the audit was talking about, but in all the other ways that make all of our work every day happen in this district to support our children. So thank you again to the community for that. And as we go out and further explore whether or not we can pursue a bond to hopefully address these buildings at the high school, as well as El Granada, Fair Longview, some of our other campuses that are 50 years. I'm really excited to hear what the community has to say and who would like to be involved in those types of efforts. So thank you very much.
Just echo beautiful words of condolences from Freya. It's a huge loss. I've lost two very special people in our community, and they will be missed. That's what I should say. Exciting to see the governor has proposed giving us a little bit more money. Hopefully that will pan out, and we'll be able to make the most of that positive, although still insufficient, bone being thrown our way. It's also, I think, on the other side, concerning to see the threats that are coming down from the federal level with regards to enforcement of immigration policies and procedures in Northern California specifically. So I think we're all aware of these threats being made. If we could just double down and make sure we're all trained and aware of the procedures that we have in place should there be events here on the coast, as well as just being aware that the buzz is around, people are aware, people are nervous, and how can we just support our children and our parents and our community during this continuously difficult time. And I just want to put a shout out to the Half Moon Bay City Council and the Bike and Pedestrian Path Committee, which is meeting tonight as well, and they're reviewing a draft plan, which I don't know if folks have had the opportunity to review. It's actually a very well thought out, comprehensive plan looking at the safe routes to school, among other elements, and I'm sure we have folks that have been involved with that on the committee. I've been in touch with folks in the council and the committee as well over the past several months, and just encourage them, safe routes to school, safe routes to school, make sure kids can get to school safely and comfortably and conveniently as well. So it's great to see that they've made some progress, and from what I've seen in the draft plan, it looks pretty good actually. Kudos to the team that's been supporting that effort, and to the city council and the committee itself. So that's all.
Thank you. Kim?
So, condolences both to John Corey and John Evans' family. For me, the loss of John Evans is very personal because I would not be sitting here if it weren't for the 8 years of working with him across 2 of my own children, and realizing what community he built, that love of teaching music, teaching about the composers. You know, it's real easy to see a band on a football field, but not realize that there's such rich education that goes on. And the number of students who go on to major in music is testament to the love he infused. It was, he would have kids for 4 years, freshman through senior year, and they come in as awkward teenagers and leave as much more mature young adults that are willing to engage with community in so many different ways. Band students, chorale students are not uniform. They're a mix of special ed and gate kids and football players and runners and water polo players and kids that just struggle, and that's their place. He connected and built community in a way that really sets the bar high. I wish he had had the opportunity to work under Mr. Nazar, but he felt it was his time to retire. I wish he'd had longer in retirement. I'm sure by next board meeting we'll have an actual date, but tentatively the weekend of the 17th or 18th of February is when the family's targeting, and they're looking for, anyways, I'm in touch with Kim Evans, and we're gonna have a lot of students flying back to Half Moon Bay. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Just want to mirror the condolence comments. What a great loss to the community and their families. Unimaginable. I also want to thank Sean for his comments today about the state of classrooms, some of the classrooms at the high school. This community has been incredibly generous with parcel tax support and bond support, and we've done some great work at Pilarcitos and Hatch, and of course at Cunha as well, but we're not done, and the board is going to vote next month whether to pursue a bond to help complete the work that needs to be done at the 2 elementary schools up the coast, as well as here, the work that needs to be done at the high school as the priorities. And so if we make that decision, I just want to ask again for the support of the community, both with the votes as well as in the support and action in the campaign, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in walking neighborhoods and making phone calls and making sure everybody is fully informed about the costs, the benefits, and why the community needs to move forward with another bond to support the kids. So thanks for that. That's all for me. Hello. And we'll move to the student board member. My friend, welcome.
Hi everyone, hopefully everybody had a good winter break. Now that we're back, I'm pretty excited. Since we're back, I only have a couple reports, but I'm not that surprised since there's probably not a lot of things to report out from a lot of schools. But I'll start with Hatch. So the PTO will celebrate the huge success of the Jogathon fundraiser with Hatch students on January 26th by bringing inflatable slides and music for kids during their lunch recess. And Hatch will also be having a readathon with young authors this week from January 22nd to January 26th. And Mr. Porcel will be hosting a coffee with the principal on February 8th, where parents will be able to gather, network, and have an open discussion. One teacher per grade level will be attending a social and emotional learning conference/training on January 26th as a part of our SPSA plan goal number 4. Okay, so now I'll go with Farrell on View. So we would like to express our appreciation to Kelly Hoffman Davis and our PTO leader, and our superintendent. Together they were able to successfully pull a $10,000 grant in less than 24 hours. This generous funding from Recology will bring outdoor science experiments and a greenhouse for our students and teachers. We will also like to express our joy for having a number of Montera and Moss Beach families attend first session of a series of 3 family literacy nights. Miss Rachel and several teachers have assembled a toolkit of strategies and activities that the adults will learn and then practice with our students. Our goal is to help foster skills such as sequencing, summarizing, and invigorating reading comprehension. And the last one is the Half Moon Bay High School. So Half Moon Bay High School is proud to begin the new semester. Now that it's December, final grades are now being submitted and seniors should be finished with the beginning process of college applications. Important news I would like to share involves the Half Moon Bay High School leadership class and their final assignment from first semester. Will You Fill My Bucket is a children's book about daily acts and love and simple acts that bring a child joy. Inspired by the book, our first semester final asked us to fill people's buckets by creating small joys for others through random act of kindness. Example, some students involved opening doors for teachers and students, which is just like a really nice random act of kindness. Other students helped out through cleaning the house and helping out their parents through having a stress-free day. And some students actually brought some donuts to the staff members, which I thought was really generous because which staff member doesn't want donuts? And throughout the holidays, some students also helped during toy events. But one of my favorite ones that I wrote down, it involves me, the cheerleaders, and the football team. Since we went to San Diego, we did a lot of acts of kindness, and that just proves that we're able to act kind in different locations, even though we're from a small community. And I think that's really important to do. So just a big shout out to the Half Moon Bay High School leadership class for doing so many acts of kindness and also being responsible for big activities like assemblies, rallies, etc. There's just so many to write down. And last, I want to mention that for future events, our winter assembly will be happening on January 26th, and our winter formal will be on February 3rd.
Wonderful, thank you. Jane, we turn to you.
It's not that I require 2 microphones, but my fingers are cold, and so I can't get a microphone turned on. I don't think I want to go through a weekend like the last one in a very long time, with the first phone call taking place on Saturday and from Kim informing of the loss of John Evans, which is just a staggering blow to the district and its programs, the impact John had on many, many, many young lives, and an incredible testament. And the next day, the phone call I receive from Steve and barely can get out to me that John Corey had passed as well. And it's very hard to put any words along the kind of loss that takes. This is not a big district. We don't have thousands of employees. People don't get lost here. People are part of this community. They are part of the threads that bind us all together. And yes, people retire and they move on, but they will forever be part of our threads, and two really came undone. And a very, very difficult time for us. But again, as a community, we come together and we lean on each other. And one comment I would make is that both these gentlemen, I hope, realized what a privilege they have had and what a great life to be able to impact young people. It's rare that you can have such an incredible effect. To those who stay, those of us who are still in the profession, yeah, we have our good days, we have our bad days. There are days when you just say, why am I doing this? There got to be an easier way. Remember, there are very few people in the world who can directly impact the next generation and how it is, and we are the fortunate few. So we may have our moments, we may have money problems, we got all the things that educators have, but we have the next generation within our hands, and we have a completely direct impact. Please do not forget that, and do not forget these two wonderful educators who also made their impacts on many generations of students. On the other side of this equation, speaking of our students, I was lucky enough to catch some basketball. I haven't gotten out as much as I'd like to this year, but I got out to the game and watched our girls very handily defeat their opponents, and also our boys. So our teams are looking good this year. The kids are looking great. It was actually quite fun because a lot of our kids had come back for winter break, and this game was literally right before they all went back. So there are all the kids I know from last year, and they're rooting on all their friends who are now this year. So great sports events. I've had the pleasure of getting out onto the school sites. Specifically, just went to Fair Lawn View, and one of my great. I love being with the kids anyway. Anyone here knows this, but one of my great moments, which I will share with you, is that I arrived in Fair Lawn View class. Is she third? Bob. Is she third? Yes. So I arrive into the class, and there were two ambassadors that come to greet me in the class, which is just the cutest thing in the world. One has a green cape on, and one has a red cape on. And I say to them, so what would you like to show me in your classroom? And they said, Bob. And Bob is the snake. And I know every time I go into the classroom with Cesar, with her, I don't care who the ambassadors are. I'm not going to see I'm not going to see the computers. I'm not going to see I'm going to see Bob. And Bob is a hit. And this time, Bob had a big sign on that said, I am molting. So, of course, being the science teacher, I said, what does molting mean? Bob's growing. Ah. How does that have to do with molting? So we had quite a conversation, but they were locked on Bob. And I just said, so is there anything else you'd like to show me? No, that's good. We're done. And they were just adorable. But I will say that their depth of knowledge about molting, about the snake, and they were both English learners. We had a good 10-minute conversation, complete sentences, academic language. Of course, I took the opportunity to kick the academic up. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still a science teacher. I was having a blast with Bob. But they were fabulous, absolutely fabulous, and a true testament to the great job that our teachers do with kids every single day. Same thing, we saw some kindergartners, all the kids running up, let us show you this, but Bob is always a hit. So the highlight of Fair Lawn View, if you get over in that classroom, I can tell you, you will see Bob. So he is quite cute. He's quite a cute little corn snake. In fact, he's quite a big, fat corn snake. The other one is much thinner. There's 2 corn snakes up at Fairlawn View, if you did not know. But wonderful things that I see at our schools every single day. So thank you to all of our principals for letting me come on your sites, and thank you teachers for letting the woman come walking through your classrooms and enjoy the art and craft of what you do every day.
Thanks, Jane. All right, we'll move on to the consent items, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented? Thank you, Frey. In a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kim. So we have approval to accept the consent agenda as presented. All in favor? Sorry. Aye. All right, and that's 5 plus 1. Great, thank you. All right, we will move to action items. 15. Right, and the first one, we'll hear from Crystal, accept budgetary audit report. Crystal?
Yes, good evening. Every year, actually, three times a year, we have our financials, an outside independent auditor that is approved and licensed by the state of California and the Department of Education that visit our school district. Once they visit in the spring and they look at processes and go out and visit sites, look at how we take attendance, our instructional minutes, and how all that is processed. They begin the start of reviewing some of our financials and doing some financial testing on all of our funds. And then they come out end of summertime, August, and they audit our bond funds, which is our construction. And then they come out in fall to create this wonderful, somehow I don't think it made it to the New York bestsellers list, but this wonderful information book that has all of the district's financials in it. And it is a very good read. I have several copies in my office that are available. And it is a full review, a comprehensive review of all of the financials of the district. And then it is presented to the board in January per Ed Code. So tonight, as you've had a chance to review, I ask you to accept the audit report ending in the 2017 fiscal year. This independent audit report has no exceptions in the audit opinion, no material weaknesses, no disagreements, and no management findings. So we passed with no necessary adjustments. And again, I cannot echo enough Freya's note that she found on page 10 as far as the percentage of our funding that comes from this community. Working in other districts, and looking at several other audit reports, I can tell you that that is very high, and I'm so thankful to be a part of this community in this district where we can account for such a high percentage of funding from our community. So with that, I ask the board to accept the audit report for the year ending 2017.
Thanks, Crystal. Do I have a motion to accept the audit report as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Second. Thank you, Kurt. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. 5 plus 1. All right, we'll move to the next item, which will be Crystal again. We're going to discuss accepting the Measure B annual report.
Yes. The Measure B parcel tax was the renewal of the prior parcel tax, which was about $150 a parcel. And each year, a different independent auditing firm does come in and they look at the financials attached to this parcel tax, which are kept separate, and they audit to make sure that we are spending the funds according to the ballot language on which we promised our community to do so. There is a community oversight committee that does meet a couple of times a year to review this report, to actually get check-ins, and then at the final, after this report is done, to review the report and to accept it. We are currently recruiting for that committee. district employees can serve on it, Ms. Paoli. And there's only a couple meetings a year. It's very quick, but tonight I present to you the annual report for Measure B that acknowledges that all funds were spent according to the promised ballot language.
Thank you, Crystal. All right, could I have a motion to accept the Measure B parcel tax annual report? Thank you. Second? Thank you, Kim. All in favor?
Just real quick again, I
Oh,
want to say
okay.
thank you again to the community,
Of
because
course.
without this, we would be in dire needs, wouldn't we, Crystal and Jane?
No doubt, no doubt. All in favor? Aye. Great, 5+1 in support. Okay, well, we got through the action items, so we're on to 16, future board agenda items. Next time, we will hear from John. He'll be covering the Half Moon Bay site report at high school. Construction update, we'll talk about first reading of potential new courses at the high school. Approve consolidated application part 2, ongoing policy maintenance, and receive visual performing arts update. That'll be in April. And coming up, we have a PTO meeting at Hatch on the 23rd, as well as El Granada. Jane and I will be at both of those. On January 26th, sibling open enrollment lottery at the district office. And we're going to have a big lift meeting on the 6th. Chamber Education Committee meeting, 4 p.m. at the district office on the 6th. And then February 8th, we're back again for our board meeting. So the board is going to return to closed session, but the open session we will bring to a close. Thank you.